This is a video by Richpin. Today we're working on a Hyundai Sonata. This happens to be a 2008 model. And what we're doing today is we're replacing the rear brake pads and rotors. Now the first thing we're going to do is jack up the back of the vehicle and support it on jack stands and remove the rear tire and wheel assemblies. Now after we've got our wheels and tires off, the first thing we're going to do is remove this Phillips head screw that holds the rotor on. I'm going to tap the end of the screwdriver a little bit as I unscrew it. There we go. A little vibration helps to remove it. Now the next thing we're going to do is get a screwdriver into this little window, the inspection window right here, and we're going to compress the piston a little bit back in the bore. Just loosen it up, and that will help us to remove the caliper. Next we need to remove these 14mm head caliper bolts. This is one here, this is the bottom one, and up here is the top one. We need to remove those now. Now, where the bolt mounts to the pin, it's a floating pin, and sometimes that pin will move. Now if that's the case, if that's what happens when you remove the bolt, take a thin 17mm wrench and get right in there on that hex, and now you can remove the bolt. And there it is. Now before you remove the caliper, fabricate yourself a small piece of wire with some hooks on it. This particular one is about 4 inches long, and we'll remove the caliper, and then we'll insert this wire, and this will help us to hold the caliper out of the way. Right over here is a brake line next to the body. We can hook that right on there, and now that's out of the way. Next we need to remove the two 14mm headed bolts to secure the caliper mount to the knuckle. This is the bottom one right here, and we need to remove the top one now. Now before you remove the mount, you can remove the pads if you so wish. I'm going to leave it in there and just take out the last bolt here, and the mount will come right out of position. Now once the mount is out of the way, the rotor should come off. Now if it's rusted on there, we'll probably have to use some penetrating oil sprayed in there and then tap around the rotor to remove it. This one is not rusted too bad, so it should come right off. There it is. Now before you put in your new rotor and pads, this would be a good time to push the piston back in the caliper. Okay, there it is, all the way in. So we're ready to put our new pads and rotor on. Okay, we're almost ready to put on the rotor. Now this vehicle right here is being driven up in the salt belt area, and the rotor likes to rust right on the hub there. So what I've taken is some brake caliper grease, put a little grease right on the hub. Now the rotor should just slip right on. Now if it doesn't, now if it hangs up on the shoe right there, there is a little adjustment right down here. I'll show you that. Now here's a look at the adjuster that's on the bottom of the shoe area. And you just turn this little piece right here, and that will adjust the shoes for you. Okay, we're ready to put our caliper mount back into position. I've got the pads already installed. Now make sure that the inboard pad with the indicator on it is in the right position. And you might want to make sure that these guides are clean. I cleaned them up, made sure that the pads won't stick. And we'll just slip it in place. And we put the bolts back in. Okay, now we just need to tighten those up. Okay, the mount's all in position. Now we can put the caliper back in place. And install our bolts. Okay, now we just tighten them up. Okay, this one's all done. Now all we have to do is go over to the other side, do the same procedure. Now don't forget, after you put on your tires and wheels, make sure you pump the brake to set that caliper on both sides. And that's it. That's all there is to replacing your brake rotors and pads on your Hyundai Sonata.